My husband, Nick, was married to his first wife, Vanessa, for 5 years, and they had 2 amazing kids, Luke and Lila. Sadly, Vanessa died in an accident 11 years ago when the kids were very young. I started dating Nick 8 years ago, and we started off very slowly for obvious reasons. Nick has always been a little more distant than anyone I'd ever been with. But he and the kids lost Vanessa so young that I understood it. After 3 years of dating, Nick asked me to marry him and I moved in. I've always had a really great relationship with Luke and Lila, and they were happy for me to marry their dad. I had wanted an actual wedding, nothing big. But Nick really didn't want one, so we got married at the courthouse with just Luke and Lila present. We had a really fast engagement, but it worked for all of us. I have loved being Luke and Lila's stepmom and officially adopted them after I found out I was pregnant with our son, Casey. The kids have been so great with Casey and help out so much. Nick was wonderful during the pregnancy and had always been a really loving dad and husband. But Nick has been pulling away a lot the last few months. He's been even more distant than usual and working late nights and going away with friends almost every weekend. I've tried talking to him, but he's been impatient with both me and the kids. I found out I was pregnant in June and am now 21 weeks pregnant with a girl. The kids are excited to have a little sister, but Nick just seems so indifferent to everything and everyone. He's been missing soccer games, Lila's birthday, doctor's appointments, etc. Casey is too young to notice, but Luke and Lila are so hurt by their dad's absence. These kids are so good and they lost their mom so young, and I'm infuriated that Nick is ignoring the kids like this. Last week, I finally sat Nick down and told him that he needs to stop disappearing and be more present in our lives. We're going to have another child soon, and before we know it, Luke and Lila will be grown up and going to college. After an hour of arguing, he screamed at me that he wished Vanessa was still alive and that I had switched places with her and died instead. He also threw in some awful comments that I need to stop pretending I'm Luke and Lila's real mom and that I'm only half the mom Vanessa was. The final straw was him saying that he never even wanted any kids with me, but did it so I'd keep busy and leave him alone. I'm so beyond hurt right now. I know I'm just his second choice. But I've always tried to honor Vanessa and tell Luke and Lila how lucky they were to have her as their mom. I love all of our kids more than anything, and I'm just so heartbroken. Nick barely pays attention to Casey now and doesn't even acknowledge the pregnancy. He somewhat apologized this weekend and took all 3 kids to lunch, but he won't even look me in the eye. He seems like he wants to talk, but he doesn't say anything, and I'm too upset to even be near him. I'm not sure where to go from here. Honestly, I can't even be around Nick right now, and if there weren't any kids involved, I'd leave and never look back. I'm not sure if he's cheating or the thought of a 4th child is stressing him out. But I'm devastated and not sure how or why I should save this marriage, besides doing it for the kids. I have this vegan coworker, we'll call her Vegan, who is very active on FB and in the office about being vegan and how cruel farming is and everything. Each to their own. I don't necessarily disagree with her views on animal cruelty, but here's the thing, I'm a hunter. Not a trophy hunter, but I do shoot feral pigs, rabbits, ducks, introduced, classified game ducks, and foxes, and I fish too. All except for the fish are classified as pests. Foxes especially kill native wildlife and farm animals, and farmers will often put you up on their property for free to hunt them. I have passed tests here, especially for identification of game ducks versus protected species, and practice ethical hunting. I.e. allow the animal to have a fair chase, no dogs or tracking devices. Practicing marksmanship and dispatching prey swiftly and humanely and not wasting the meat. None of that is obviously good enough for Vegan. When she first came onto the team and told everyone she was vegan, I kept my mouth shut about my hunting. I also think she's really intolerant because she preaches to people about how going vegan will help with their various ailments, and always turns up her nose at people heating up meat in microwave. As a result, we've kind of consciously started excluding her when we get up for lunch. However, last year I started going hunting more regularly with a work friend from another department, whose uncle owns a farm where feral pigs and like are an issue, and he often swings by to have a chat about guns and bows and our next trip. And she found out I was a hunter. This isn't even at our desks, it's in the kitchen area that has tables and stuff, and we sometimes eat our lunches together. Ever since then, every conversation I've had with her, she's referred to hunting and how cruel it is. One time, I wore a leather pencil skirt to work and she had a go at me for wearing animal products. She seems to have singled me because of the fact that I go hunting. My boss has no spine. I've tried talking to him about this. But she just intimidates him and makes it seem like she's been persecuted and he's backed down from that. She even tried to get a vegan shelf in the fridge and tried to rope in some Hindu vegetarian guys to do that, but they pointed out that they use milk and cheese and honey in their cooking. They also think she's nuts. It's gotten to the point where we go out for drinks on a Friday night at 5 and we never ask her. I don't organize these things, a coworker does, but my boss told me, when I brought it up in one-on-one meeting, that she feels really left out and she seems to think it's my fault because I've been here for longer and I'm somehow poisoning them against her, or something. I have since been conscious of this. If anyone starts conversation about vegan, I just say I don't talk to her unless it's work-related and she's more than adequate at her job. It's actually become something of a joke or catchphrase. I told my boss I don't organize anything except official events and she's always been invited. If she's not invited to informal stuff, that's not even organized by me, then that's not my problem. The coworker that doesn't invite her, she managed to piss him off because he's eaten guinea pig, he's from Peru. And she asked him if he'd eaten any of his other pets. For the record, he never ate a guinea pig that was a pet, it's something they eat in Peru. Whenever she brings up hunting or anything, I just point blank ask her there was anything work-related that she wanted to talk about, and if there wasn't, I would start talking to someone else or just walk off. I have asked her multiple times to keep conversations work-related. I never start a conversation with her at all. Most of the time, she pounces when I'm in the kitchen making tea, getting water, or just stretching my legs. One time last week, a group of us were talking and she got up to join the discussion. A horrible silence fell over the group to the point where I just excused myself and went to my desk, and so did a few others. It all came to a head in our team meeting today when our boss, usually at the end, asks if there's any positive news or celebrations outside of work people want to share, like engagements, marathons, charity appeals, etc., and vegan sarcastically asked me how many lives I'd taken last weekend. I got annoyed and said her constant badgering me about my hobbies and choice to eat meat was discriminatory and bothersome, and that unless it was work-related, she was not to engage me in conversation otherwise, and told our scribe to put that in the meeting minutes. She seemed a bit shocked by that and my boss looked uncomfortable but said fair enough. I thought that was the end of that, but the right before our boss went to close the meeting, 2 other coworkers also put their hands up and asked vegan to only engage them in work-related discussions, and that they were also uncomfortable being given non-medical health advice pertaining to their choice to consume meat and their diets. Again, boss looked uncomfortable but asked vegan to respect their wishes and closed the meeting. Vegan didn't look anyone in the eye after that but headed straight to the bathroom. My boss was trying to get one of the co-workers to see if she was okay. And I think one of them eventually checked up on her, but she was in a cubicle and asked to be left alone. She eventually came out and asked my boss to leave early, which she did. I feel awful now. She embarrassed me in front of my team with the lives taken comment, so I pushed back, but I am caught between not wanting her to miserable and not wanting anything to do with her at all. A few of my coworkers and I ended up in a proactive conference call after this with HR, who basically said that always been subjected to unwanted advice and jabs about eating meat was not okay. But some mediation was in order to ensure cut the tension in the workplace. The HR rep then called my boss, who explained what happened in the team meeting and complaints that we'd made one-on-one, etc., but then he went into a meeting room and didn't hear the rest of discussion. I don't know what to do, assuming she comes into work tomorrow, or if I should even talk to her at all. I have a lot of family members. I come from a religious community that doesn't believe in the public school system and tends to have a ton of kids. I have an older sister, Julia, a stepbrother, Ron, a stepsister, Molly, a half-brother, Joe, and a half-sister, Lucy. Growing up, all of us were homeschooled. This involved a lot of neglect, lack of textbooks or seasonally appropriate clothes / shoes, unheated house, and sometimes physical abuse. I lived mostly with my mom, but spent weekends with my step-family. Both houses were dysfunctional. My stepmom used to have a severe problem with alcoholism, although she's been better in the last few years. Ron is my best friend and I would be lost without him. We've supported each other through years of hard times. And we discuss a lot how our lives could have been different if we'd been sent to school or generally had a more healthy home life. Obviously, we don't want the same thing for our younger siblings. And don't want to see them struggling in minimum wage jobs while trying to study for a GED the way we're doing. When I went to visit him recently, I found that my stepmom had gone out of the country for an entire week and left the youngest two at the house. Ron and Molly both work. Molly hasn't been doing any homeschooling for about 2 years and are out of the house for most of the day and night. I tried to help Lucy with her math homework, but she was extremely behind grade level and kept getting distracted because she had to make lunch or do chores. Joe spends all day in his room playing video games and gets no guidance from anyone. I try to as gently as possible get him to do some reading, but he doesn't understand how serious the situation is. And obviously is having too much fun to care. So I called CPS and reported educational neglect. And obviously everyone knew it was me. And Ron told me that stepmom said I wasn't welcome at the house anymore and to never contact any of them again. Molly is extremely mad at me. She blocked me on Facebook and doesn't have a cell phone where I can reach her. Julia, who somehow heard about all this despite living across the country, also blocked me on Facebook and reported my Facebook as impersonating a celebrity. Facebook deleted it, generally making everything harder. This stings even more because I'm already estranged from my bio mom over my religious beliefs. I now have no family members left, besides Ron, thank bejeebus, who want anything to do with me. I feel like I make enemies everywhere I go. Ron has been saying for years that he can't call CPS, and I guess this is why, but at least he doesn't blame me. He suggested that I try to talk to stepmom once some time has passed, but I would have no idea where to begin. My husband, 35 years old, does not have a car. He sold his old one to help pay for his brother's wedding. I did not agree on this, but he had this car before we got together, so it's a shared property. Besides that, I have my own car, so that did not affect me till my husband started complaining about having to commute to work and hangout places. He tried to get me to let him drive my car several times, but I stood firm and put a boundary, making him understand that my car will never be driven by him. One of the reasons why is because of how bad his driving is. His brother lives out of town. My husband asked if he could drive my car to the wedding, but I refused, but not because I'm not invited. Another story for another day, because like I said, my car is off limits. He threw a fit calling me unreasonable to let him take public transportation because he can barely stand it for 10 minutes, let alone hours. I said it wasn't my problem, which irritated him but made him stop arguing about it. The day that he was supposed to travel out of town, I woke at 10 a.m. and couldn't find my car key. I went outside and couldn't find my car either. I was beyond pissed. I called him and like I expected, he took it and was on his way to the other town. I lost it and told him I gave him no permission to take it for a whole 5 days and said that if he won't turn around with it and come home, then I'd call the cops and report it missing. His response was, "You wouldn't dare do it 'cause you know what would happen." I hung up on him, then immediately called the police and told them about my situation. I did not tell them my husband took it because they'd think it's a family dispute and decide to not get involved. I just reported it missing. 2 hours later, I got a call from my husband saying he was back in town and was being held at our local police station. I went to the station and talked to the cops. My husband made a scene there, swearing over and over that I gave him permission to take it and said I was acting out of jealousy and spite because he was going to attend a wedding that I was not invited to. I took my car and went home, but he had to stay a little longer. He came home in the evening and went on a rage fit about how I created an awful situation and almost caused him to miss his brother's wedding. He called me vindictive, bitter, and a lunatic to call the police on him and try to accuse him of stealing my car. He had to leave the same day to be able to be there with his family and decided to extend his stay, and he still hasn't gotten back yet. Right now his mom and brother are blasting me for what happened and calling me spiteful.